You don't want to be a taker, do you? Hello, I'm Stephanie Michelle, and welcome to another episode. We are going to discuss the art of receiving. This can be a hot topic, especially in a society that says to give is better than to receive. But is that really true? Every giver needs a receiver. But let's back it up a little bit. I'd like to share an example that really stands out in my mind from when I was getting used to this art of receiving. So back in the day, a previous boyfriend and me and some friends were going out to eat. And once we sat down, I realized I'm so cold. This is actually kind of freezing, but I left my coat in the car. And within an instant, the person I was dating said, "Oh, let me go grab it." And immediately it was up and going several blocks to the car. And meanwhile, I was feeling a series of guilt because after all, I was the one that had forgotten my coat. So why should he have to walk all the way to the car to get it? It was my responsibility. And perhaps my nonverbals were giving me away. And I remember a guy friend at the table looked at me and said, "Stephanie, he wants to do this for you." And that may seem like a minuscule thing to you, right? Receiving someone getting your jacket for you, walking those blocks that maybe you feel you should walk. But let me give you another example, a recent example. So I'm currently staying in Philadelphia, totally new to this city, and I decided to go out to dinner. And at this stage, I didn't really know anyone in the city. And I heard about this restaurant. And even though it was about a mile walking distance from the conference that I was at, I thought, I want to treat myself. Let's go to this nice restaurant and just enjoy. So I show up and I grab a seat at this really long bench. And then there are really little tables meant for either individuals. There were some couples that were crowding around them. And I notice to my right, there's a woman. She asks me if I can watch her stuff. And when she comes back, I ask if she's visiting, because she's dining solo just like I am. And I actually come to learn so many things that she actually lives in my hometown on the other coast, the West Coast, and that she has strong roots in the personal development industry, my industry. And we just had a really lovely conversation. It lasted a couple of hours. And at the end of the experience, before she went to head out, she said, when the waiter came, let me cover her bill too. And I was like, my eyes kind of widened and I said, "Thank you." And there was that switch. Instead of, I don't know if I deserve it, or, there was this switch to gratitude. Thanks. That's so awesome. And then once she left, I realized that in the 2 hours, my appetizer had arrived, but my actual meal had not. It had been 2 hours. So I went up to the wait staff and I said, "Hey, just checking on my entree. It may have been forgotten." And they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll get that out to you really shortly. Sorry for the wait." And then when I sit back down, I look to my left. There's a gentleman sitting to my left. And I decide, let's just ask him the same question. I ask, "So are you visiting?" And the answer is yes. So he happened to be a pilot that was there on business, right? And we ended up having a great conversation. And then he offers to get me a mocktail. And I'm like, "Sure, thank you." and then, having this great conversation, just simply being open to the experience of going to this restaurant, open to the experience of saying hi to new people. And then the wait staff comes over to me and says, actually, we'd like to comp you a dessert because we realize that you've been waiting here a long time for your food. And I immediately, again, oh, thank you. And I go ahead and choose, their favorite dessert. Usually anything with chocolate will do it for me. And there was this really whimsical feeling of, okay, I followed my desire in a city where I didn't know anybody, simply wanting to go to this restaurant, not being held back by the fact that I didn't have a dining companions. And I even, and I was, open to making friends, but it wasn't even about making friends. It was about just saying the initial hi, the initial hello, and leaving that dinner with people that I connected with and had really great conversations with. And I share this not to brag and be like, oh, like, look at me, I went to treat myself and then other people treated me. No, you can have this too. It's an energy. It's an energy of receiving when you are open to it, when you know that by you receiving in that moment, there's no guilt because you know you're going to pay it forward. And it may not be to the exact same people, it may not be in the exact same way, but there's this feeling of deservingness, worthiness, and the lightness of gratitude, letting energy flow as it will, and just simply feeling inspired for what gets to be possible in your life. Essentially, I was in total awe of receiving. And a decade and some change ago, I am not quite sure that I would have been open to such an experience of connection and receiving if I didn't have that initial early experience that seemed so simple, but really flipped a switch for me. It all started by making the decision that my desires are totally valid and that I will do what I can to satisfy those desires. And the rest unfolded in a pretty magical way through genuine connection and some patience. And another point to mention is that sometimes when we're on this journey of being more comfortable receiving, we may say a quick thanks, just kind of, okay, let's get it over with, thanks. Oh, when I'm encouraging you, allow it to sink in a little bit. Allow yourself to relax into this receiving. And when you say thank you, allow it to radiate throughout your being. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Some eye contact and just the feeling of, wow, life gets to be this good. I'd love to hear about your relationship with receiving. Maybe you have had a similar experience where you serendipitously received, were gifted something simply by being super open and following your heart's desires. So if you have one of those stories, which I'm sure you do, I'd love to hear about that. Here's to you receiving a wonderful day. And until next time. I would love to invite you to a clarity session with me to find out if working one-on-one is your best next step. If you are ready to up-level your confidence, diminish social anxiety, build authentic, deep connections, and rise into the level of leadership that you are destined to rise into, then let's activate that. You can go over to thestephaniemichelle.com/coaching.